Plainfield, Wisconsin, a small town, Midwestern town, with a population of about 800 in 2023. While a small farming type community, it is known for some interesting stories. In 1853, a local squatter named Furman took a trip to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On this trip, Furman would meet a man named Cartwright from New York that just happened to be looking to settle in the Midwest. As luck would have it, there was a territory that was in desperate need of settlers. That territory was called Plainfield, Wisconsin, in Washura County. So, Furman offered half of his property to Cartwright to settle in Plainfield. Things started out smoothly between the two men, but as you can guess, that would not last long. Furman was a man with a lawless reputation, and the two began to have issues with one another. So much so that Furman made attempts to get Cartwright off the land unsuccessfully, which led to a filing in the courts to get him removed. Litigation did not work uh, for Freeman to get him off the land. As it would happen, um, Furman was not able to make the court appearance, and Cartwright won the case. Now, afterwards, to celebrate his victory, Cartwright would go to the bar room at the Boynton Hotel in Watoma. As luck would have it, who of all people would he run into? Well, it was Furman. This led to an angry exchange of words that resulted in a brawl. Eventually, Cartwright would use the pistol in his pocket, shooting Furman 3 times. Furman would die an hour after the incident. Cartwright was arrested and taken to the Oshkosh jail. Bail would eventually be posted. Now, some of Furman's friends, however, before bail was posted, made threats to lynch Cartwright if he returned to Washura County. Cartwright, fresh out on bail, paid no heed to this threat. He returned home anyways. On that second night home, the friends of Furman made good on their promise and came to Cartwright's house. The first attempt to break in the home, they were met with Cartwright stationed in his attic with a shotgun ready for them. The first wave of the mob was shot down and killed, so they retreated. Now, they didn't give up. No, they did not. This led to the use of trying to burn down the house to smoke Cartwright out. Now, this did not work either, and this mob was not very patient. So, one of the members was a constable of the county. So they called on Judge Walker to convince Cartwright to surrender. Now, Judge Walker, unknown um, what the mob was going to do, convinced Cartwright to surrender and to go back to jail. But that's not what happened. Little did he know, the mob hung Cartwright, and no consequences came to the mob. Now, little did this town of Plainfield know that This incident would be the only thing Plainfield is known for. Actually, it's probably not well known at all anymore. A person who has inspired many horror movies of the 20th century and enticed droves of people to this little town. Um, while it's not necessarily a tourist location or a family location, vacation destination, um, I'm pretty sure you know who I'm speaking of. That person is the one and only Ed Gein, the original Leatherface, the man who inspired Psycho. Now, Plainfield is known as a place of darkness, insanity, and unimaginable horrors. Welcome to Paranormal Playground with the Phantom Pals, Nick and Leah. We had a chance to explore the Plainfield sites, and we will talk about those. But first, I don't know how many parts this is going to be. Ed Gein is a very long topic. Um, so sit back, relax, and I would like to introduce you to Cocktails and Creeps on Paranormal Playground.
We are the Phantom Pals, Nick and Leah. And for our first adventure, we went on a tour to see the locations of Ed Gein in Plainfield, Wisconsin.
Mhm.
We decided that when we discuss these fun topics, which is pretty much me because I love serial killers and I'm going to discuss them. I think Nick likes them a little bit.
I'm kind of into serial killers too. I think we're both a little bit weird like that, so that's why we mesh pretty good for this.
Exactly.
So I hope this brings a lot of fun to this podcast for you guys.
And we thought we would do something fun when we're doing something like this, so we decided to call it Creeps and Cocktails. And today's cocktail, we have our brandy old fashions.
Why a brandy old fashioned? What is the thought behind this?
So when we have our cocktails, we're going to do something fun, a drink from that state of the serial killer that we're talking about.
Okay.
Ed Gein was born and raised here in Wisconsin, and the biggest Wisconsin drink is, of course, the good brandy old fashions.
Okay. I mean, and Plainfield isn't really known for their own beer or anything like that. Like Milwaukee has their own, and
right.
So we can't really do from his hometown.
Right. But let's do the
closest.
Definitely the closest.
Yes.
So we're going to do the big drink of the state, and I'm going to try it now.
Wow, you did a really good job making those.
Heck yeah, those are good.
That's awesome. So now, what is, for people who don't know, what is in these?
In the brandy old fashioned?
Yeah, what is it? What is it for somebody who's not aware of it?
Okay, so the brandy old fashioned has obviously brandy, bitters, orange slices, and cherries. And you can mull it too because you can add some sugar to it and like really crush the cherry and the orange at the bottom with the sugar.
Yes.
And that's a brandy old fashioned sweet. Really good. I cheated a little today because I'm not the best bartender. So I went over to the store and got an already pre-mixed.
Oh.
Yes, I did.
You cheated. So you didn't. Okay.
I'm a little bit of a cheater.
That's fine.
But I did put the orange slices in, and I did do the cherry. I didn't mull it because I was a little unsure of if we should be doing sugar or not at this point.
Yeah, we're just not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that right now.
So we're being a little careful with sugar.
There's no good reason for that. I don't know what you mean.
Alrighty.
Okay. So all right. And I also am going to bring in another C. I have a cigar here, so I might light up that cigar during some of these.
That's good because I have a great story to give you.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
We got the expert here. She knows more than I do about it, so
I'm in love with the story of Ed Gein.
I am really enthralled with it too, but I have started researching it later than she did. So um, I am going to be. I will give what I know, but
Mhm.
most of um, the explanations and stuff and the thought process, she's going to know more about why Ed was the way he was.
Yep.
Um, so, well, since I said that, let's go actually into his family history, right? Is that what?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you don't know who Ed Gein is to begin with, Ed Gein is the what they called serial killer of Plainville, Wisconsin. Plainfield. I don't know why I want to call it Plainville. Maybe I just want to rename it. That could be it. So it's Plainville, Wisconsin.
Well, if they renamed it, then it wouldn't.
That's true.
They wouldn't have to. They wouldn't be stained by it anymore, I
Yeah,
guess.
I guess. So Plainfield, Wisconsin. However, Ed was actually born in La Crosse, Wisconsin on August 27th of 1906. He was an American, what they called an American serial killer whose crimes gained worldwide notoriety. I can't even say my words today.
That's. Is it the old fashioned?
It is. It
Okay.
is. The old
Okay.
fashioned got
It's
me
the old
today.
fashioned. Yeah.
Alrighty. So we're going to stress that even though there was some actual murder victims, Ed Gein does not necessarily fit a mold or even the description of a serial killer. Serial killers are typically described today as a kill of three or more, and with a specific spacing of time, as well as patterns, routines.
Okay.
He's not quite at the serial killer because he did only kill the two. I
Okay.
mean,
Well.
granted, two is not
Okay.
good.
So now I have a theory on this because I'm reading the book Deviant,
Mm-hmm.
um, by Harold. Um, my words aren't helping me.
Sketcher.
Sketcher. Yeah. And they talk about this, and when he was finally captured or figured out, the newspapers were very sensational about everything, and he was thought to be the killer of a lot of people who disappeared. Um,
True, but there's no evidence pointing
no,
into it.
and they actually ruled him out eventually, but I think that might be where the serial killer
Idea comes from.
comes from because
Okay,
he was thought of as possibly that person.
sure.
And the media did not help him at all. When
Well, does the
so
media help anybody?
no, but they did not help his image
Right.
and the stuff that happened. He was thought possibly as the one who caused all that.
Okay,
So that
that's
is my
fair.
theory.
That would be a fair theory. That makes sense to me. But I wanted to make sure that I just kind of put in there that I don't think he was a serial killer. I don't think he fits that mold. However, he was definitely delusional and lived in a very weird mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And we have only two people to thank for that mindset: his parents.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, first, I actually want to say something. I think I know who you're talking about.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So now this comes from the famous movie Psycho.
All right.
Now, Norman Bates said this
Okay.
when he was sitting in the hotel room with a girl. And he said, and she was asking him questions, and he said, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Am I right? Are you going to talk about his mother?
We're going to talk about his mother. Absolutely.
Okay. I knew it. I
We're
knew it.
fully
I knew
getting
it.
into the mother.
Okay.
So Ed was born to George and Augusta Gein. We're calling it Gein because we're in America and that's kind of how we pronounce things. However, if we were to go with the German saying of their name, it's
Yeah.
actually Gein.
Oh, okay.
But we're just going to keep going as Gein.
Mm-hmm.
So Augusta Wilhelmine Gein, whose previous name was like Lurke,
Oh,
Lehrke. So
yeah.
Lurke,
Larky,
Learke.
Lurky,
Yep. She was
something like that.
born.
I don't think she can correct us right now, so
No, but I do feel like if we investigate again up there, she might say something.
yeah, yeah. Last time when we were in the jail cell, didn't we get a furious?
We got a furious comment from her.
She doesn't like women in the jail cell.
Not really.
So she
She came across on
my spirit
on
talker.
the spirit talker and said furious.
Yeah. So.
Alrighty. So she was born in July 21st, 1878 in La Crosse, and she
Oh.
died in December 29th, so just after Christmas, in 1945 in Plainfield, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Her father was actually born in Germany, Frederick William Lurke. He died in February 29th of 1904. Her mom, Amelia, was also born in Germany. Now, she had a lot of siblings. So her siblings went like this in order. Maybe not in order, but here are her siblings: Gustav, Edward, Henry, Emma, Bertha, Ida May, Otto, Alvina, Caroline, and Herman. Now, Caroline and Herman were actually the eldest because they both were born and died in Germany.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Wow. So she had a lot of siblings.
And it sounds like they died shortly after their birth,
Okay.
within a year.
All right.
So she had a number of siblings. So we're going to discuss.
Can we go into a little more? So we know her siblings and her parents, right?
Yeah.
Okay. My thought is, how did she? What was it that she does that? How was she? Her demeanor, and how was she towards Ed?
Oh, we'll get into all that.
Okay.
That's a fun story.
Oh, all right.
But in order to say that story, we got to talk a little bit about George.
Oh yes. Yeah, George.
George.
He was a doozy, wasn't he?
But George had such a sad story.
He did.
So,
I can identify with him. I
yes,
can identify with him.
super sad story. So, George Philip Gein was also born in Wisconsin and died in Plainfield. He died August 1st of 1940, so before Augusta died.
Yes.
His father was John Gee from
Actually,
Canada.
I have his obituary here if you want me to read that.
Yeah.
In this book Deviant, his obituary is in here.
Go for
And
it.
it's George Gein, 66, was born August 4th, 1873, and passed away April 1st. What a day to pass away, obviously.
April Fool's Day,
Yeah,
right?
1940. His mother and father and little sister preceded him in death. They were gone to town, and he was staying home or at home because of the high water. As it was raising in the Mississippi River, mother and father and sister never returned, leaving him an orphan boy. The flood occurred in Vernon County a good many years ago. He lived in La Crosse until 1914, then going to Plainfield, where he since resided. He is survived by his wife and two sons, Henry and Edward. He had suffered considerably over the past 3 years, but his sufferings were eased by his faith in God. He was never, or I mean, he was, he was a good husband and father and will be missed by all who knew him. Now, that last phrase, we might kind of,
I kind of want to look into that a little bit.
yeah, but that was his obituary. He had actually a pretty good obituary.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was kind.
So, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. So George and Augusta met and were married 7th of July in 1900, and they remained unhappily wed for 40 years, living in remote isolation. So George had a more tragic upbringing, obviously at the age of 3, losing his parents and his 1-year-old sister.
Ooh.
So kind of imagining your parents leaving and never returning and learning that they
Okay.
had died.
Yeah, and that's what I read in the obituary.
That's traumatic.
That is. It didn't say how old he was. How old was he
3.
when he was 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that so he never really knew his parents actually.
No, and so knowing what we know about the brain and adolescent brain and developmental stages, he had passed that birth to 3 time. But now we're going into the 3 to 5-year-old stage where you're really looking for that nurturing of
Yeah.
your family. And
So
you've basically passed all your first milestones, and now you're looking to explore, you're expanding your boundaries, and you're looking for that parental guidance as well as that nurturing And now you lost your mom and
So was
dad.
he ever adopted? Maybe did he have
He
a
stayed with
foster
his, yeah,
family?
he stayed with his, I believe, uncle and aunt,
Okay,
from my understanding.
so he did have
He
somebody
had
to.
somebody, yeah.
Okay, so like he didn't just go into the orphanage and what's the word? Have to
Just stay there.
stay there
Yeah.
and got no attention maybe or
Well, he didn't get a whole lot of attention from his uncle or aunt either.
okay.
It's not like he was had a great upbringing after that. They really just didn't want him.
Oh, yeah, that's not cool.
So after George's upbringing there, George became more of a violent alcoholic who struggled to hold down a job. Whether he was a tanner, carpenter, insurance salesman, he even owned the grocery store with his wife Augusta. But he seemed useless and was treated as useless by his domineering wife Augusta.
Okay.
He would come home from bars. He would frequently be out of the house and physically beat Augusta when he was in his violent drunken stages.
Okay, can I ask how did this affect them? Because I read that Augusta that they had a grocery store in lacrosse and
Yeah.
originally it was in George's name. When she saw that he wasn't
Oh, she took it
able,
over.
she took it over.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was in Augusta's name.
So it was a very contentious marriage.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That so I mean so that and then yeah.
So if you think of Augusta, we're going to think of mm, domineering,
Okay.
kind of masculine of the relationship.
So in that household he would beat her. Right.
When he was in his violent drunken rages,
Okay,
he
but
would.
how would she react to these beatings?
She would continue to berate him and saw him as
Okay,
useless.
so he would physically abuse her and she was verbally abusing him.
Correct.
And Ed and what's his brother's name again?
Henry,
And Henry,
they had to see it
they
all.
had to see all of this.
Correct.
Okay. That could be very traumatic for a
Right?
kid. Yeah.
I mean, so if you're keeping the ACE score, which is the adverse childhood experience of Ed Gein, we already have ACE score with the drinking of a family member and then seeing violence in the home. So we're at a 2 already.
Okay, we're at a 2 already.
Yep.
Okay.
So Augusta was a strict Lutheran raised in a similar household who disliked the drink and sexual deviance such as masturbation and believed that all women, excluding herself of course, were whores and sent to the devil to tempt men. But she didn't believe in divorce. So many are asking,
Oh, so what did she think of sex then?
can only be done for having children. That's it. There's no enjoyment to it. It's just have
That
kids.
does, wow, that
Yeah.
does not sound like a marriage, but okay.
So people are asking a little bit more like what religion this was. So Augusta was raised in the old Lutheran style, which
Mhm.
is actually the old Lutherans were just plain confessional Lutherans. But because of the forced union of the Lutheran and Reformed religions in Prussia, they called Prussian Union. The Lutherans who did not accept the union were ridiculed and in many cases persecuted and
Hmm.
called Old Lutherans.
So this was more
This all happened in Germany.
in Germany.
Yeah,
Okay.
where her parents are from.
Okay. That was
Yep.
I'm
So
trying
Old
to
Lutherans were sometimes called mucker by their opponents, and that is really bigots,
okay.
hypocrites, and narrow-minded. Which, when you're thinking of Augusta, pretty much.
Yes, yes. Yes, I would agree.
So, according to the beliefs of the Old Lutheran, all humans were full of sin, but their thoughts and actions by every way. Humans, they believed, were infected with immoral motives, and because of this, they believed that all humans deserve to burn in hell.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what to say to that. So,
So, as time went on and numerous alignments and some mergers, the descendants of the old Lutherans can be found in three major Lutheran bodies: the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America via the American Lutheran Church, and the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod. In January of 1902, Henry was born. Can you imagine?
well,
Can you
I
imagine
want to
trying to
talk.
have a kid
I kind of
after all
want to talk
that?
about them meeting
Who?
the George and Augusta
Yeah.
because I
Yeah,
was
how
reading
did they
about
meet?
that.
Tell me about that.
And I'm trying to find it where it is in the book. Um, okay, they wed in December 1899. Like, no, and it says she was in charge of the household. So she was very in charge. Um,
But that makes sense though, because at that time, women were the
and it
housekeepers.
doesn't really say how they met,
I
but
didn't come across
I'm
with a lot about how they met.
no, I'm my question is, what did she find in him that was attractive, and what did he see?
I was going to say, what did he see more than what did she see?
Well, she was against drinking, and he was an alcoholic even before that.
Yeah. Makes me wonder if it was a forced marriage, like arranged.
Or was it one of these things where they were both in lacrosse, they saw each other? Um,
Kind of had to.
yeah,
Because we'll have to put up their wedding picture at some point.
they
They did
met.
not look very happy, and even in their wedding
No,
picture.
no. And I'm kind of curious, and maybe in future installments we'll have that answer, or
Sure,
we'll update you when we do have that answer. But
sure.
um, I'm just kind of curious how they. Oh, for it says here, she never had. She was never. Um,
She never chased after by any
no,
of the
no,
suitors. I
no,
mean, would you? I'm just
no.
saying.
So maybe she took what she could get, is what I'm thinking. Um, I mean, and some of it here is that she didn't really notice his alcoholism until after they were married.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, okay, yeah.
And maybe he wasn't that much of a drinker.
Or she didn't see it because he didn't around her. He wasn't like that.
Well, either way.
Yeah.
Well, they did end up having a son.
Okay.
First son came in 1902. The eldest child, Henry. Um, can you imagine having a kid with her?
From what I hear of her, no, I couldn't. Um, you know,
That would almost be scary.
I had children with my first wife, and she was very domineering too. And yeah, that
Hmm.
um, yeah, that I think she's probably worse than that. Yeah.
Well, on August 27th, in 1906, Edward was then born and joined the Gein family, and they
Okay.
all resided in La Crosse. Now, Augusta forced the family to move to Plainfield, Wisconsin, because she felt that La Crosse was full of worldly sins, and the women
Hmm.
there were whores. So, as well as the contempt that Augusta felt towards her husband, she rarely showed affection to her two sons and believed that they were condemned to be disappointments just like their father.
Okay.
So, in an attempt to keep her young boys on the correct path, Augusta would preach to them from the Bible and instilled in them the belief that alcohol and women, except herself, were pinnacles of immortality.
Oh,
So,
wow.
during their upbringing, Ed and Henry were prohibited from spending any leisurely time with the family outside the family's rural property, which meant that their only physical escape was attending school. But Augusta then would discipline her sons if they attempted to make any friends at school, which significantly impeded on social interactions, and Ed became more of a victim of bullying. Now, it is said that Ed did find a friend in school,
Okay.
but when
And how
he
did that go?
that didn't go well because
Okay.
she berated him for making a friend and then berated his friend and their family about all the immoral things that they do in the community, and she knows all about them and everything that they do wrong, and he is
Okay.
forbidden from hanging with them.
Wow. So you said she would read from the Bible
Yes.
to them. What would she recite most of the time? Do you know?
You know, there was a verse that she
Would it
recited. Do you remember what it
would it be
was?
Psalm 6?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So that one says, "O Lord, rebuke me, not in thy anger, neither chasten me in thy hot displeasure. Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am weak. O Lord, heal me, for my bones are vexed. My soul is also sore vexed. But thou, O Lord, how long? Return, O Lord, deliver my soul. O save me for thy mercy's sake. For in death there is no remembrance of thee. In the grave who shall give me thanks? Give thee thanks. I am weary with my groaning. All the night make I my bed to swim. I water my couch with my tears. Mine eyes is consumed before because of grief. It waxeth old because of mine enemies. Depart from me, all ye workers of iniquity, for the Lord hath heard the voice of my weeping. The Lord hath heard the voice of my supplication. The Lord will receive my prayer. I don't know.
Interesting.
It's a very interesting verse to.
It really is. Is that as far as it goes?
That's as far as it goes.
Hmm.
And I'm sure the versions were different than when she did them, and
Of
that's
course.
probably closer to the version she used.
Of course. And if you can imagine, this was their life, Henry and Ed. They would go to school, they would come home, they would sit in front of her in the rocking chair, and she would read verses to them from the Bible and give them their Bible lessons of the day.
Okay.
And then they would do their chores. That is their daily routine every single day. No friends allowed. They didn't have other family members that would
Okay.
come visit. So it was really just him and mom, them and mom,
Wow.
and dad either off
He was pretty much useless.
doing his own thing, really.
Was he pretty much?
He was hands off, very hands off with the.
Could he even keep a job?
Nope, couldn't keep
Was
a job, and
Did he do anything for the family?
um, sperm donor.
Okay. Okay. I mean, kind of like what my ex-wife sees me as. But, you know.
just saying.
Okay. No, that's a legit answer. Yeah.
Now, Ed actually had a little bit of a stammer and kind of a peculiar way of being. He had some sort of growth on his eye. It was small enough where it wasn't taking over his eye, but it was heavy enough for his eyelid, where his eyelid would droop ever so slightly. So if you look at pictures of him,
Okay.
you can actually see like his eye is a little bit more droopy than the other eye.
Oh yes, I bet he was picked on in school a lot.
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. And he had a weird demeanor where he would just laugh at things randomly that weren't funny, or he'd just laugh at his own jokes.
Was he always smiling? Just randomly, like he was in his own little world. I think.
Yeah. I think it was a very different demeanor that he had. Okay. So now he has this domineering mother who is training him to hate women, and that he cannot have any friends outside the home because everybody else is worldly and full of sin.
I had a question on this. Now, he was taught to hate women.
Correct.
Taught that they're sinful.
Mm-hmm.
And so, was she trying to make him more feminine?
It's possible because she wanted a girl.
Okay.
So after Henry was born, she wanted a little girl. And ended up not getting that little girl.
All right.
And it did seem like Ed was kind of going a little bit more to like the feminine side of life, which is okay. Like no hate on him for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that was a huge push from Augusta.
Okay, so he was very feminine.
Correct, and very emotionally attached.
Okay, so how did he see his brother then if he was emotionally attached to his mom? Was he...
Well, the brothers only had each other for social interaction. Okay. So they clung to each other as well.
So there wasn't jealousy there, or...
Not jealousy, but later in life we see a kind of a pull between them.
So Ed embraced everything Augusta said.
And so did Henry for a while.
For a while. Okay.
Until later.
So that's interesting.
Yep. So as they aged, Ed was becoming even more fond of his mother, where that best friend line kind of came from. Well, Henry, on the other hand, was starting to really question um, what was going on. And Henry
Question. Okay.
questioned, as in, is he really believing what he's being taught in these Bible verses?
Okay.
Is this the life he really wants to lead? Um, does he really think his mom has their best interests at heart?
So he's not believing it anymore.
Right.
He's like seeing through the Kool-Aid.
But unfortunately, he was in like his 40s by this time, so it took a
Oh,
while,
yeah.
right?
That took a while. Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
Ed, I mean, to be honest, was becoming so close with his mom that he considered her his true love. Isn't that a little far to take your relationship with your mother? I'm just saying.
I'm trying to picture. Okay. I've heard of domineering mothers. A mother's love can be domineering.
Right,
They have this protective trait.
right.
Whenever you have issues, they have a protective trait to their children.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do anything for their children, but to yeah, that's no, can't.
There's
That is
nothing wrong with a son loving his mother, but when it gets
no.
to a point where,
There's a son loving
yeah,
his mother, and then
right.
there is mama's boy.
And I even think this is like a level ahead of Mama's Boy. Like,
Wow.
it's
All
kind of
right.
scary.
Okay. That
So April 1st of 1940, George dies.
okay, and
All
that's
right,
where I read that obituary.
right. So that
Okay.
was that April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
Yep. So George dies due to, I mean, some references call it heart failure. Others just say he drank
Yep.
himself to death.
I wonder if when that happened, they thought it was an April Fool's joke.
Now you're gonna make me want to go look up and see when April Fools actually started. Was there an April Fools in 1940?
Just saying. Was it did Augusta think like I'm sure she was happy it happened because he was never pulling his weight anyway. I don't think she was heartbroken ever about it.
I doubt it.
But do you think she was like, "This is April Fool's Day? Is this
Are you
like,
joking?
are you joking? Because if you are, stop. Because this is actually I don't have to deal with this guy anymore."
For some reason, I could see Augusta standing over his body and going, poking him on the side of his face. Hello, you're awake.
Is that your German accent?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So Ed and Henry ended up working a couple odd jobs to help around the home and cover
Okay.
expenses.
Ed or Henry had an interesting job, didn't he?
Did he?
I think there was a talk about in the Deviant book. He had a very interesting job.
Well,
But I'll look it up while you talk.
Edward had a couple odd jobs, including babysitting.
Yes, I know that one.
Yes, he liked to babysit because he enjoyed hanging out with kids and younger because the mentalities seemed to match his because he was never able to grow socially.
Okay.
So it wouldn't surprise me that he had a small brain development, which then puts you at a younger age mentality.
Right.
So, um, I feel like you're still looking something up.
Yeah, I'm looking up. When you talk about Ed's things, I'm looking up Henry. There was a statement in here about Henry and a job that Ed was so proud of. And
Right
talking
here.
right here, Ed had a deep admiration for his older brother. He's the only man in the area who could handle
Those
those
guys.
guys.
He was a foreman.
He was a foreman in a
Okay.
factory overseeing Jamaican farm laborers.
Mm.
That's what I
Yes, now I remember Scott telling us that.
okay, yes, Scott
Yes.
actually should show the book.
We should really introduce Scott's stuff here too, because he's been
Yes,
used for a lot of references.
He has been a very great resource for us.
So this is one of his books, just simply named Gein, and it's Scott Bowser. He is somebody that we were able to have the opportunity to meet and walked around Plainfield with him, and he gave us so much history
Yes.
and knowledge about Ed Gein. It was amazing.
Future parts of this,
Yes.
we are going to talk about that tour he gave us.
Yes.
Which, thank you, Scott, for that tour. That
absolutely
was amazing.
And anything more, he also has the Ed Gein Chronicles. And this book really has just a ton of information from newspaper articles to legal papers, anything that you can look for to learn more about the history and what happened.
So,
amazing plug in there. We're just
and
gonna
you can
throw
find
that out
them on
there.
Amazon. So
Yes.
just to throw that out there. So let's keep going here for another 5 minutes and find a wrap up point
Yeah.
that we can carry on to next week.
Yeah. So after George died, and Edward and Henry did their own working, so Henry was working the odd jobs, but he used to talk to Ed about how they needed to explore the world outside of the house and their mother, which actually upset Ed. Now, Henry, on the other hand, was actually seeing a young lady who was divorced.
Oh, that had to really irk.
Oh, Augusta was not cool with that.
Because she was divorced, and divorce was not
okay.
Not okay.
Right. I mean, and she was a woman, and all women are whores and terrible people.
But
so
the fact that she's been divorced,
even worse.
So
he wanted to leave and go be with her, and was trying to tell Ed, like, this connection that you have with our mom, this bond, this emotional, loving connection, is not healthy. And Ed was, instead of listening to his brother, was actually getting deeply angry with his brother that this was coming forward. So
at that point, and that's when Henry was like, "Wait, you're full of it."
I think Henry was probably very concerned for Ed.
You're full of it, Augusta. This is too much.
Right.
I see through your lies in his eyes. Now, there's a place for religion and everything too, but she was extreme.
She was beyond extreme, yes.
Okay. So,
but Ed didn't like this because he's Mama's boy, and that's like his love.
Okay.
So now he wants to stick up for Mom. So now we have the first real controversy that takes place with Ed Gein.
Okay.
And we'll kind of wrap up after I say that one. May 16th of 1944, the two brothers were doing a burning march on the farm, and the fire got out of hand and broke out further on the land. And the brothers became separated as they were trying to extinguish the fire. Henry's body was later discovered by the search team. Edward had said that the cause that he lost his brother while they were trying to do this firefight. However, he was able to show the police officers where the body was. He led them right to Henry. And it was noted that Henry had blows to the back of his head and not any burns on his body. But they still said the cause of death was asphyxiation. So there's that controversy. Some believe that Henry was Ed's first kill.
So let me get this straight.
Yes.
There was no evidence of burns in his lungs or
on his body.
On his body.
Correct.
Ed says he did not kill his brother.
Correct.
But he knew where his brother's body was, even though he said he didn't, but he led them right to it.
Right, because they became separated, so he didn't see his brother pass.
This was after his brother wanted to be with a divorced woman.
Correct.
And defied his mother.
And started talking poorly of his mother to Ed, which was angering Ed.
Okay, so what is your thoughts on that? What do you think happened?
Honestly, I
because
don't.
They're both dead now, so.
Well, yeah.
So there's no.
I don't believe, as crazy as it sounds, I still don't believe that Ed killed his brother. I do think it's crazy that his brother was found with blows to the back of his head. But I don't think Ed did it because it's just Ed didn't snap until after Mom died.
Now, that would make him a serial killer because that would be a third victim.
Possibly. If he did it.
So technically he could be a serial killer. We just only have two confirmed cases because so
Right.
his death is still a mystery. Henry's death, technically.
To the rest of us, I mean, he
Yeah,
has a
but
cause of death.
he has a cause of death, but it's not really confirmed.
It was confirmed by the medical.
Okay,
I mean, they do have a confirmed cause of death.
but
Do we believe it?
okay, that's what I mean.
Right.
There's question behind it.
There is a question behind it and
Okay,
the first real controversy in Ed's life.
okay, yeah, okay,
Okay.
yes, that
Do
makes
you think
sense.
he did it?
Um, with how protective he was with his mother, I could see where he did.
Okay.
Um, I could also see Henry was family, so I can see both sides. But I could see where he did it
Okay. All right.
because his brother was living in sin,
Okay.
and as we go further, we will see some of the things that set it off.
Correct.
So, with that knowledge that I have that we haven't presented to you yet, that is kind of where I lead.
Mm-hmm.
But it was his brother. So, me and my brother don't always get along, but I wouldn't kill my brother.
You're also not thinking your mom is the love of your life.
Very true, very true, very true. You have a point there.
I mean, if you are, maybe we'll have a conversation about that.
No, we don't need that
Okay.
conversation. We're
Okay.
good. We're good. We don't have to have a conversation about that. So, do you want to close this out?
Yeah. So we'll get back to next part,
Yeah.
part two.
Yes.
Okay. Part two will go on and discuss what happens after Henry's death.
All right. This has been a Dead Squirrel in the Woods Productions. Uh,
Cheers with our old fashions. Mine are almost gone.
I encourage you next time you watch, make your own old fashioned and join us.
Absolutely.
Make it a party
All right.
and click that subscribe button to see when the next part comes out. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.